In general, a family meal is really going to open the doors for all kinds of opportunities, whether it's going to be developing a skill for your children, increasing that social emotional building, so that relationship building between you and your family. And then, of course, building a sense of connection within your family as a whole.
Family meals play an important role in helping children develop healthy habits around food. In addition, they provide opportunities for children to learn about healthy, nutritious foods, build a menu, help in the kitchen, and form stronger bonds with everyone in their family. On today's Sound Living, tips for planning family meals. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. If you're wanting to make family meals a priority in your household, K-State Research and Extension Family and Youth Development Agent in the Chisholm Trail District, Tristen Cope, recommends starting slow and keeping it simple. Tristen, as we think about family meals, we often think, yes, they're highly nutritious. That's one benefit. But from a children's perspective, they have found a lot of research that shows there's more than just the health aspect of it. There's a lot of other benefits for children when they have family meals.
Yes, the Family Dinner Project actually describes a number of benefits of family meals that include better performance, higher self-esteem, a greater sense of resilience, lower risk of substance abuse, a lower risk of depression, and healthy eating patterns in young adults. And these can include lower rates of obesity and a lower likelihood of developing eating disorders.
As part of your Living Well Wednesday webinar that you presented earlier in March, the one thing that really kind of stood out to me was you talked about, as you get into this process of actually having family meals, especially if it's not something you've done in the past, the idea of just keeping it simple. I thought that was a really good idea.
Keeping it simple is the number one thing to plan for when you're looking at having a family meal. Family meals don't have to be elaborate. You can stick to recipes that you know your family is going to eat and that they're comfortable with. In addition to keeping it simple, you want to have a way that you can have your family members involved in making that meal. This could mean planning out the meal itself. Maybe you as a parent are choosing the protein, and then you're allowing your younger children to choose the vegetable or the fruit. You also want to have children to actually have some time that's enjoyable. Family meals should be a time when you get to know one another and build that relationship. This could mean you have something called a family conversation jar. This is one of my favorite ways to get to know one another during your family meals. A family conversation jar is simply what it sounds like. It's a jar or a cup, and you have different conversation topics that you can place inside of that cup. These could be anything from what was your first job as a parent, or something deeper, like tell us what things make you feel loved.
The thing that's nice about that is it's that nice conversation starter, and that's really kind of one of the benefits of family meals is spending time together and really getting to know one another outside of just kind of the day-to-day activities.
Absolutely, because our family meals are more than just that nourishment. They're there for that comfort and that support, and the time where you get to build the intentional relationships with one another. It's a time when maybe you dive into deeper topics with your children, but more in a controlled or in a comfortable format. Again, you can ask them things like, what did you get to do at school that made you feel validated or made you feel empowered? You get to have those genuine conversations with one another and get to learn a little bit more about them that's more than the surface level.
I guess along those same lines, that maybe also eliminates the need for them to be on their screens if you're doing that conversation.
Screen time is such a big topic right now within the early child education and even just family conversation realm. When you have meal times, it's a time for listening and sharing and building those relationships. So you want to ensure that you're leaving that phone on mute or out of reach during your family meals.
Now, that goes for the parents, too, because sometimes they get involved with their screens, don't they?
Absolutely. It is so easy to respond to a quick text right there during the middle of your family meal. But what you're doing is you're prioritizing your time to show that your child is valued during that time frame, that you are intentionally focusing on that family meal, and that is your number one priority for that hour or for that 30 minutes.
One of the other things you talked about was establishing a pattern and maybe starting by picking something that you know everyone is going to enjoy for the dinner.
Yes, when you keep it simple, you are able to really find a way that your family can select different food items. So when you get into a routine, it could be helping your children always identify the vegetables, or it could be identifying that fruit source. You can then go more elaborate and introduce new recipes or introduce new ways in which your children can help you within the kitchen.
This is also a way to expose them to maybe some foods that they might not be getting at school or in other places?
Yes. When you rethink of trying new foods together as a family, I always think of picky eaters. As a caregiver, you play a big role in your child's eating behavior. What you say has an impact on developing healthy eating patterns. And negative phrases that we use can really be turned into positive or helpful ones. One resource that I really love to use when I'm working with caregivers or even when I'm working with babysitters at my babysitting clinics is something called picky eaters, phrases that hinder and phrases that help. So this could look like, instead of saying, "See, that didn't taste so bad, did it?" you could use a phrase like, "Did you like that? Did you like the texture that strawberry had? Can you taste the sweetness, or can you taste how sour that blueberry is?" You're rephrasing something that you were wishing to say in a more positive aspect. You're also identifying, too, maybe their signals, like, is your stomach feeling full? Can you hear that growling noise? Is your stomach telling you that you're hungry? These are different ways that young children can help you to identify what they need at the dinner table. In turn, you are serving as a role model to your children, because when we are all sitting together for a family meal, you're able to select and help them to introduce new foods to their diet. Another way, too, is showing them that you're role modeling that new food item. Let's say you're tasting okra for the first time, or maybe an eggplant. That might be a new item to the child's vocabulary and also to their palate. You as a caregiver have the option to taste that and to describe what you are tasting and invite your young child into tasting that food item.
And if I remember right, this is something that could be an over and over and over process. Most people don't like something initially. You may have to reintroduce this food several times.
Yes, absolutely. It is a repetitive process to reintroduce the food several times. It would be the same thing, too, as reintroducing the concept of family meals. Family meals may not happen exactly perfect that first time, but the more you introduce them, or the more you get into routine of offering something, the more it's going to become normal or second nature to your family.
In terms of the menu itself, I know that sometimes that can be overwhelming for some people trying to come up with a menu. There are resources out there, but maybe the first place to start would just be by looking at the My Plate and seeing what goes into a healthy meal.
Absolutely. The My Plate menu, it has a great visual where half of your plate is fruits and vegetables, and then the other half is grains and protein, and then you have a dairy component as well. Something that's easy for young children to help when planning a meal is to identify which piece they would like to include in. I would start small with this. I would give them an offering for, let's say, fruit. Would you like to try peaches, or would you like to try pears tonight with our meal?
The nice thing about that is it can be canned, it can be frozen, it can be fresh. There's a lot of options when it comes to really fruits and vegetables.
Yes. Any type of vegetable or fruit that you're offering, whether it's fresh, whether it's frozen, whether it's canned, is going to be a good nutritional value or benefit to your family.
Along the same lines with the My Plate, we're looking at the protein, we're looking at the grains, the dairy. So all of that kind of comes into play, and that's another way that the children can be involved, is picking the different things.
Yes, children can be great help with picking the different food items. I would even encourage families to take their children to the grocery store with them. When they're in the store, they can actually help to make those food choices that they would like to have for the meal. So they can see the corn, or they can see the asparagus, the broccoli, the cauliflower. They can see all of the produce that is laid out in your grocery store and help to select what they're going to have that week for maybe their vegetable item, or maybe their fruit, or even their grains if you start to go into the grains with your children.
And they can also help in the kitchen, too. This can be part of the process as well.
One of my favorite ways to having children help you with meal times is actually in the kitchen. Children develop a sense of anatomy by helping to do other things that are maybe seem a little bit more grown up, but that's helping them develop future skills for later life development. One of my favorite ways that children can assist you in the kitchen could include wiping the tables down, or maybe setting your table for dinner. Another way would be involved in the preparation. Children can help you to read the cookbook, which is actually a good benefit for developing later literacy skills. They could also help you to rinse the fruits and the vegetables. Maybe it's describing the cooking terms when you're making your food item. Let's say you're making fajitas, and you're slicing up the different peppers, and then you're dicing them. You're talking through with your child and introducing them to new vocabulary words that they may otherwise not hear in their normal day. They could also help you to work on their mathematics or literacy skills when they're looking at adding different ingredients into your desired menu or to your desired item. Children have a lot of different skills that they're able to work on when they're helping you in the kitchen.
Well, and this is another way to really foster that bond, too, isn't it? I think everybody can go back and remember spending time in the kitchen with their mom, dad, favorite aunt, whatever, and sometimes that's where some of those family tradition meals come into play, too. So it's really another way to spend extended time with your children.
Oh, absolutely. You get to develop a great sense of bonding time when you're in the kitchen. I mean, I can remember growing up the amount of times that I made monster cookies with my mom. We were always talking about the different textures when we were mixing them together with our hands and how sticky it was. Then we were talking about the nutritional benefit of protein, such as what is in the peanut butter. Or we were talking about the different components when you're adding in the little M&Ms or whatever goodies you want to add to your monster bars. There's several different ways that you can build that relationship while you are in the kitchen just doing simple tasks. You may not think as a caregiver or as an adult that you're building that relationship, but to that child, you are building lasting memories for them that's going to help them with later life benefits, which again are already proven for family meals for that better academic performance. And you're developing that sense of resiliency and increasing that vocabulary that they are building just by helping you prepare for a family meal or eating a family meal together.
Probably not much of a problem to get a child to eat the monster cookies that they've helped prepare, but in some cases when they help with other parts of the dinner, it does make them more likely to try that food and to want to try that food.
Yes, they're able to then see. I'm thinking if you're slicing up different bananas or if you're helping to slice up some kiwis or strawberries, those are all different textures. And they're a time that you're able to actually look at that fruit itself and investigate it and maybe explore it a little bit more too. This could be especially true from a 2-year-old all the way up through your high schooler. They're able to be introduced to new food concepts because they're there helping and they're there preparing that meal.
I think another thing that comes into play here is just the fact that children get to see how much effort goes into making a meal. And really, in some cases, it doesn't take that long to make a healthy meal. Sometimes it does, but other times this could be kind of a quick process.
Yes, and you can make it be a quick process too, especially if you have their help in the kitchen. I'm thinking if you have your children helping you to prepare that table or helping you to maybe clean up as you're cooking or as you're moving along, one extra hands in the kitchen is going to be very helpful. Maybe not at first, but I would really encourage you to repeat this process because you're going to develop a routine when you're in the kitchen of things that you know your child is able to do. You're understanding their different abilities that they have, and you're building upon them. We like to use this term called scaffolding. So you're scaffolding that level of being able to do something and building upon it for that child in their development.
And that sense of accomplishment is really big, especially early on.
Yes, that sense of accomplishment is huge for young children. They take pride and ownership in something that they helped to create. When you're thinking of making your fajita meal again, they're going to be so excited that they helped to make that. They helped you to rinse off those peppers, to count the peppers, and maybe to slice them with a soft butter knife. They're going to then be more excited to try those different food items that they may not have had before. In general, a family meal is really going to open the doors for all kinds of opportunities, whether it's going to be developing a skill for your children, increasing that social emotional building, so that relationship building between you and your family. And then, of course, building a sense of connection within your family as a whole.
That's K-State Research and Extension Family and Youth Development Agent in the Chisholm Trail District, Tristen Cope, with tips for planning family meals. Tristen and Monique Kerner, Family Community Wellness Agent for the Cottonwood District, recently hosted a Living Well Wednesday webinar on nutrition and skills to get you started on family meals. That webinar is available online at ksre.ksu.edu/FCS. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.